Hello there, SERAPHIM17 once again. This is my Dark Souls 2 walkthrough. We are in the Lost Bastille again. This time we're going to be dealing with the ruined Sentinels and finishing up this area. So you'll notice that there's probably not going to be a fancy, I say fancy, just a little bit of one of those artsy intros to the area because we've already been here, and the purpose of those is just a little bit of an introduction to the levels, and also just to have something a little bit nicer, or something that sets this aside from all the gameplay driven pieces of walkthrough that you can watch. Because there's a lot of walkthroughs of Dark Souls on YouTube right now, and this one admittedly is very late because a choice I decided to make, which was to play the game until I understood what I was doing and I could find a really strong way to help new players, but also to do a blind playthrough. So if you're looking for fails, if you're looking for mistakes, if you're looking for surprise and all that kind of good stuff, you're not going to find it in this walkthrough. This is a highly edited, streamlined point A to point B conquering of Dark Souls 2. The blind playthrough is much less polished, so that's the kind of thing you're interested in, then feel free to check that out. Just bear in mind, it is a very lengthy process, folks. It is 100 videos long, so if you're the type of person who, when you start watching something, you either get addicted or you want to watch all of it, you're going to be there some time because it's a very long series. But I just nearly died then, which is really bad. And it's bad because I fought him poorly. The best way to fight the Landsky is to literally bait the attack, roll away from it, and then punish him on the recovery with a backstab, because it has such a high recovery on it. You want to always flank to his right, away from his weapon, and if you've got a shield, he's very, very simple. But once again, we are dual wielding for the purposes of the damage that the mace does and the stun lock potential, so there are certain instances where these weapons are going to fall down a little bit, and that is one of them. Which is why, earlier on in the guide, I showed you where to pick up some very powerful elemental weapons, and we're still at the point now where weapons are kinda scarce, and you're not going to find anything that really breaks the game except for those two weapons, so you want to be very, stingy with your equipment until you get something you're comfortable with, that you like, or that you know is going to pay dividends later on. And the maces are great for that, but the maces are not the easiest weapons to use, so it is always going to be a preference thing. Like, if you ever see the videos on YouTube of, best weapon in Dark Souls, best weapon in this and that, like, they don't really work in Souls games, because all the weapons potentially can be used incredibly well, and all of them have drawbacks in areas where they're not so great. So, there is no best weapon, there are just, objectively highest number of damage on the status screen weapons. That is all there are. Oh, there is, sorry. And that sometimes doesn't mean shit, because a lot of the times those big numbers are split damages, and if you come up against something that's got really high defense in whichever one is giving you the most damage, you're not going to see massive numbers like it tells you should be seeing, so you need to be aware of things. And if you're coming in with the mentality that you want to get the most overpowered weapon ever, you're probably already using it, because every weapon can be viable in certain circumstances, and especially if you buff them. Buffs, very powerful against human players especially. Not so much against the AI, but still incredibly damaging, especially Resonant Weapon. Resonant Weapon is a spell and a hex that you can get from Falcon, the Outcast, I think he's called. He's the dude sat in the chair as you approach the Huntsman Copse from Medulla. He has some pretty insane stuff, and that is the buff you want to go with, because it just seems to be more powerful than everything else. Because buffs don't scale, you're going to get that set amount of damage, so you don't even have to invest that much to get it. It's kind of insane, and that's why you're seeing a lot of it in the game. Combine that with the fact that a lot of armors don't really deal with dark that well. Unless you're equipped a certain way or focused towards having high dark defense, dark is going to tear you a new one. Just like this cheeky doorway here. So this is the biggest beginner trap in the game. It is a crazy aggro mob pull. It doesn't make any sense at all. You step in that doorway, sometimes you will pull all 6, other times you'll only pull 2. And these enemies have a lot of range, they do a lot of damage, and they attack very quickly. They're such a strange enemy that they don't look half as bad as they are, and they always come in pairs, they always come in groups, they're always very, very dangerous, and you never want to sleep on them, because the moment that you do is the moment that they kill you. But that being said, they are very killable, and once you get used to them and comfortable with how they move and what they do, you're probably not going to have too much of an issue. And if you don't have any issue with the Ruined Sentinels, you'll not see these guys until you enter Sinner's Rise. Which looks like the Bastille, but it's a separate area that's connected to it in this grand castle. And I really like the Bastille. It's probably one of my favourite places on the game, just because it's the most realised area. It's large, and it's interesting. But this is a fight that a lot of people struggle with, and this is a technique that's going to enable anybody to never struggle with this fight ever again. And the damage I'm doing looks obscene, because it is, but it's not the damage that's the power thing here. It's the stun lock. The ability to crush their guard is what does the damage. The L2 attack in power stance with clubs does a 3-hit move. Each of these maces have, I think it's 30 poise break. Some of them have 25, it depends on which mace you're using. So immediately, you're almost doing 100 poise crush per L2. And you can just chain it. Just be aware that there's another one jumping up here about to do a big swing, and if you're too slow, or for some reason you lose the pattern, he will hit you and it does quite a lot of damage on a counter hit. But you'll see a lot of speedrunners using this technique because the Ruined Sentinels, without it, are one of the tougher bosses in the game, because you're not really geared up to fight multiple dudes that are fast, have good range and good damage. But that just destroys them, and yeah, once you see that, you're probably going to kick yourself, and you're probably never going to fight them without dual clubs ever again. But if you have range, any range player, the Sentinels are very simple, because you kill the first guy, and then you can lob whatever magic you've got at the second dude before he gets up, and then when he's up with you, you can kill him, and then it's just one-on-one with the last of them. And if you want to practice that particular enemy, and you don't want to use a bonfire ascetic, when you get to Drangleic Castle, you can take on a whole bunch of Ruined Sentinels, and boom, there's your practice. You know, learn the moves, learn the tells, learn how to dodge, learn where the range is, and they'll never really give you an issue ever again. And if you want to get really creative, you can fight more than one of them at a time, and then it'll simulate this fight extremely well. Ooh, make sure you run through that corridor, because it blows up, because there's one of those undead prisoners, or citizens, or whatever the hell they're called. The stupid walking proximity mine zombie dudes. But there's your bonfire. We're pushing over here. If you go down the ladder that I just went past, that was next to the bonfire, it leads to a Pharos stone, and the Pharos lockstone will then open up an area that leads to the belfry, which is an optional area that enables you to fight a familiar boss. And if you kill that boss, you will get the Bastille key, and the key opens pretty much every locked door in the Bastille. It also makes the Embraced Lord Soul that we're about to get in Sinner's Rise much more manageable, because you fight an enemy that is fast, that can jump around, and it's in a darkened room, so your lock-on is diminished. And if you use the key in that area, having done the belfry, you'll be able to light torches, which make the fight much more manageable, and you can actually see what you're doing. But the cool thing about that fight at this point is they've nerfed the boss so much that it's nowhere near as challenging as it used to be, which I say cool in response to people who are struggling. It's not really that cool for people who liked the challenge of the boss, because I was one of the people that really liked that boss. And on New Game Plus it gets even more interesting, which a lot of people disagree with. I've actually come to like that fight a lot, but I do still believe it's kind of bullshitty. Now be careful of these pots. They do have the undead citizens in them, and they do a swing to break the pot, which will damage you, and it does a lot more damage than you think it would do. So, a word of warning for that. This part here, if you try to open the door thinking that you haven't aggroed him, the door mechanism will aggro him, so be very careful. And if you go up that staircase behind me, it will lead to a petrified person, and a bonfire that you can't access just yet, and a whole shit ton of those undead citizens, so be very careful. But that right there is a fantastic example of the bullshit of Dark Souls 2. He is swinging a sword that is the size of a small car. I'm swinging a mace. My mace brushes a wall and I recoil on a failed swing. His sword goes through the wall and hits me for massive damage. I just don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all. It should be one or none, you know. Same rule for everybody or no rule at all. It doesn't make any sense how they can swing through geometry and you can't. It's not fair, and it's always been this way in these games, and I'll never forgive them for it. Like, there is no reason you should get hit through a pillar by a spear. It's just dumb, and it never gets fixed. So somewhere in From Software, they must really fucking like it, because there's no excuse for it to exist in my eyes. And yeah, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and you take care now.